To pregame at the Dog Pound. I'm Liam Hickey, joined alongside Liam Keohane, and tonight your Riverside Brookfield Bulldogs will look to begin their first game of Upstate A play with a win against the defending conference champions, Fenton High School. Fenton come into this game red hot on a 2-game win streak, albeit against some lesser opponents. Meanwhile, RB come into this game having dropped 2 in a row, something that they have not done since the 2020-21 season. We'll start our pregame coverage with a recap of their last 4 games. And what better place to start, Liam, than with their home opener win against Julian High School. Talk about a dominant display.
Yeah, pure dominance was shown from the Bulldogs as they came out with a 65-34 win. They opened their season with a red-hot win against a kind of last-minute hyped-up Julian team. We didn't really know what to expect coming into this game, who their top players were, and if they had returning guys that we should look out for. But you know, last minute, a couple players came out to us saying this team might be legit, and they turned out not to be. But something we've known is that you can't ever judge a CPS school on their record.
Yeah, we've learned that from our coverage of the football season and now the basketball season. It's the Wild West when it comes to the Chicago public schools. There's such a vast array of talent. There's so many disparities in the league play. You can't judge anything by just the record you see. But talk about some play performances. Danny Loftus and Cam Mercer absolutely balled out, didn't they?
Yeah, Danny Loftus opened his 2024-25 season campaign with 17 points and 10 rebounds in double-double fashion. And Cam Mercer, coming off the bench due to illness, dropped 13 points. Solid games from both of the 2 star players of the Riverside Brookfield Bulldogs basketball team. Cam actually checked in with 2:23 left to play in the first quarter and didn't really see much time off the court after that. So that was a good sign, seeing he's healthy. Vince Dockendorf started his first start with 12 points, and Ben Discupic, the junior in the mix, the newer junior, dropped 7 points and 7 rebounds, who's fitting into the roster quite well.
Yeah, and talk about some of their stats from this game. They did pretty well comparatively to how they started last year, shooting 37% from the field, shooting 28% from the three-point, which is serviceable. And what was the best part was that they shot 82% from the free throw line. This did tank in later games, but it was a great start to their home opener.
Yeah, overall, I think the Bulldogs played a really good game. It was great to see some improvement from the free throw line, but something that kind of goes unnoticed is the ball movement. The Bulldogs showed that passing the ball, moving it around, can go a long way. They out-assisted Julian 17-4. That's an insane deficit to have, and it clearly went a long way.
They showed maturity as a team coming together. It looks like it was a team in mid-season form, but the fact that they had so much chemistry from the start, it shows how effective Coach Ryan Gruber was in getting this team together, galvanizing this team around, and really building some camaraderie in their summer league openers and their games, just getting this team and building their chemistry, and it showed in that first game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was definitely something to look out for, was what the new offensive look was going to be, and we clearly saw it pretty well in not just the first game, but also the second game against Hinsdale South.
Yeah, absolutely. The next day after, on Wednesday, they played Hinsdale South and built on that momentum from their season opener victory, demolishing a broken Hinsdale South squad that was pretty shambolic. They were without their star player in Jack Wegas, who had transferred to Brother Rice. He was a very dynamic star player for them. He was actually named to the Bill Vandermert's all-tournament team, showing how good he was in this tournament. He was named to 3 All-State honorable mentions last year, and he is dubbed as one of the best wing shooters in the entire state. So watch out for him as one of the notable names to come in this IHSA season. But talking about the game specifically, the Hornets just kept shooting themselves in the foot. They gave away cheap turnovers that led to fast breaks that RB was able to capitalize on, specifically with Danny Loftus and Cam Mercer.
Yeah, for sure. Cam Mercer posted 25 points in his first start of the season. He also added on 7 steals and 5 rebounds, and Loftus also had a great game himself, putting 21 points, 3 rebounds, and 5 steals. Just a lot of costly turnovers, like you said, turned into big points for the Bulldogs star players.
Yeah, they out-rebounded Hinsdale South on the glass as well, which was pretty impressive considering Hinsdale South did not lack size at all. Talking about Mercer and Loftus specifically, they scored 46 of RB's 66 points in this game. Just shows how instrumental they are to the starting 5. Absolutely incredible. And steals and turnovers, like we mentioned, they were the difference maker in this game. RB had 13 steals in comparison to Hinsdale South, who only had 5. This is where RB scored the majority of their points. This is where they've been feeding for a lot of their baskets.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, these turnovers were super costly. When you look at the other team stats, the rebounds were 22-18 in RB's favor, and the assists were 11-10. The game was close in a lot of aspects of it, but when you have that many costly turnovers, it just kills you in the long run.
Exactly, and it looks like RB made Hinsdale South quit. As the game progressed towards the winding seconds of the third quarter, there was one specific play in particular where Michael Lofton, guard for Hinsdale South, made an errant pass to one of his other players. Kevin Mercer pounced on this ball, and you could just see Lofton giving up, threw his hands up in defeat, not striking back on defense, led to easy points on the other side for Mercer. And that just shows how hustle and grit, that tenacity as a defender, can lead to great chances coming in on the offensive side of the ball, and how they ended up winning this game.
Yeah, no doubt. And when you look at the other team stats, we'll look at the field goal percentages. RB outshot Hinsdale 58-43, which again goes a long way. And in the three-point, had a very successful game, posting a 44% three-point percentage to a Hinsdale South 33%.
Dockendorf and Mercer both shot great from beyond the arc. Dockendorf connecting from deep to open, RB scoring for the game for their first bucket. It was great. And even Walker Burns and Memphis Cupid. Walker Burns, a guy that doesn't see a lot of playing time, he got in on some of the action, scoring his three. And Memphis Cupid was able to cash in as well. That was his first three of the season and his only three so far.
Yeah, of course. Memphis Cupid's a guy that you don't really see take many shots, and if any threes. So it's great to see him cash in on one of them. But like we talked about a little bit earlier, we saw some improvement in the first game on the free throws, but that went straight back down to the ground as RB shot 50% from the free throw line compared to Hinsdale South's 83%.
Pretty bad. Also, considering that Daniel Loftus, who is their #1 player in points per game, is currently shooting 58.6%. Not great. The team average is 55%, and Mercer 64.7%. Not great at all. Hinsdale South was the worst team in this tournament by a long shot. They went 0 for 4 and lost to Thornwood in the 7th place game, 51-41. So although it was a great win and they were able to build on this momentum, wasn't the strongest team that they ended up playing, which did not leave them ready for Fenwick on Friday.
Yeah, for sure. The Bulldogs faced their first adversity this season going into the Fenwick game, and what looked to be a super tight game in the first quarter turned out to a kind of somewhat blowout at the end, as we ended up losing 64-46. You know, the game started off very tight. There was a couple of key blocks in the first quarter from a combination of Colin Semino, Montas Lanus, and Cameron Mercer that came up really big, causing in a couple fast breaks and a couple key rebounds. But just in the long run, the Bulldogs had to play all 4 quarters.
Absolutely. It was just pretty bad considering how they got dominated, especially in the paint as well.
Yeah.
Montas Lanus, who is starting to come into his own as their 6'6" center, he got dominated, suffice to say, by Nate Marshall, who definitely is an impressionable and imposing center, so hard to come up against, but not great statistics overall from RB.
Yeah, for sure. When you look at our leading scorer, it was Cam Mercer, who only had 15 points as our leading scorer. He had 18 rebounds, or not 18, excuse me, 8 rebounds. Loftus had 13 points and 8 rebounds, and Dockendorf and Semino also put up 5. But when you look at the points for the Fenwick side of the ball, they had their 5-star D lineman, Nate Marshall, lead their team with 16 points and a bunch of rebounds, which went in the long way.
Nate Marshall and what's his name? Ty Massierola,
yeah,
I believe, not playing that well for this game. Actually, no, they did. They went insane. But moving on to the next game is Joliet West, and we'll recap this quickly. They lost, unfortunately, and Daniel Loftus did play well. So did Cameron Mercer, and we're going to go to commercial now, but they did end up losing this game by 14 points. Welcome back to Pregame at the Dog Pound. Before we jump into our keys to the game, we'll talk about some takeaways about this Fenton squad, starting off with how they are not off to a strong start, to say the least. While they are on a red-hot 2-game win streak, they are 2-3 on the season, and compared to how they started off last year in the Chuck Mitchell tournament, they have not reached the same heights. They went 28-5 on the season last year, 17-1 in conference, 11-1 away, and 15-2 at home. However, in the annual Chuck Mitchell tournament, which they do host, they went 1-3 in their play in that tournament this year. Meanwhile, they made it to the tournament final last year, showing how they lost some huge players that really impacted their performance.
Yeah, and when you talk about the Chuck Mitchell tournament, you think about their one win, and it's coming in the 7th place game, which is the worst game to be put in, where they squeezed past Latin in a 57-54 win, where free throws really was the turning point of that game. But now let's talk about this team for this year. They're a very young team that's still building after losing star players. Alejandro Diaz, who was the Conference Player of the Year of the Upstate 8, which is a oversized conference, which is, you know, a pretty big accomplishment, and Xavier Gonzalez, who was an all-conference player, And both these players were 1,000 point scorers for Fenton High School.
Alejandro Diaz actually broke the points record for Fenton, which is insane and definitely shows how that was a huge loss for their team. Coming to this game, they have 2 sophomores that will be starting in Armani Sutton and Curtis Ellis, just showing how young and novice they are as a team. But speaking on Latin, like you mentioned earlier, RB smoked this team last year, beating them 79-47, and the other team that they beat most recently was Ridgewood in a tight one. Meanwhile, RB, once again, absolutely whooped them last year, winning 88-57.
Yeah, for sure. That's something to obviously keep in your head, but also something you can contradict that is when we played Fenwick last year, we took them to overtime, beat them, and then this year kind of got carried away and we took a big loss against them. But when you think about big wins like that, I think it kind of correlates with how this game could go. You know, obviously Fenton has shown some early struggles, but the Bulldogs have also shown some good signs and some, you know, not positive signs in this season. And
speaking on those early struggles, there are some key weaknesses to this team that we'll go over. One of them is that they have a lack of depth and size. Their tallest player is 6'3", and he comes off the bench. Their tallest starter is 6'2", and Eddie Lyra, their starting center. Meanwhile, our starting center is 4 inches taller, and Montas Lanis, who is 6'6". Also, speaking about depth, they really only have 7 players in the rotation that actually get significant minutes. Besides their starting 5, they have their 6'3" center in Michael Sanchez, as well as their sharpshooter marksman in Aiden Allstrand. But besides that, you won't really see anyone else.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely comes a long way when your 6'2" center and Eddie Lyra is your man to get the boards. It kills them, as it has in all of their games this season. They were out-rebounded 23-31 against Montini, a whopping 8-25 against Wheaton Warrenville South, 19-27 against Rolling Meadows, 17-33 against Latin, and 28-38 against Ridgewood, where they were able to pull out a conference win.
Absolutely dismal, but a saving grace for this Fenton team, as RB gets hyped behind us, is that they were dominant at the line through their first 5 games. They never shot below 70% at the line. They actually shot 100% versus Rolling Meadows, a dominant team who actually won the Chuck Mitchell tournament. They shot 75% versus Montini, 78% versus Wheaton Warrenville South, 89% versus Latin, and 73% Ridgewood. That's not great considering the woes RB has had with a team average of 55% on the season.
Yeah, of course, and that brings me right into my Keohane's keys. My first key of the game is to improve at the free throw line. I know I used the same thing last game, but it's going to remain in my keys until we fix this problem. And this can easily go a long way, as you talked about. This team, Fenton, is super good at capitalizing at the line, and that could bring a close game even closer. You know, so far this season, we expected some big improvements from our starters, but we haven't seen it. Cameron Mercer has a 64.7% from the line this year compared to a 79% from last year. That's a drastic fall off that you don't like to see from your star player in Cameron Mercer. Danny Loftus this year has a slight improvement. He has a 58.6 free throw percentage this year compared to a 57.3 last year. And Vince Dockendorf is shooting 60% from the free throw line, and a 50% from free throw line last year. But something to put in perspective is Vince only shot 8 free throws all of last season compared to 12 this season, where he has really made the same amount of free throws. And Montas Lanis this year is a 60% after a slight fall off from last season's 63.6%, which proves that compared to this Fenton team, we are nothing at the free throw line, and that's something that needs to be improved.
And I reckon this could sneak up on them like it did against Hillcrest last season, and where they lost against just by 6. And that was mainly partially due to their horrible free throw percentage. Yeah,
without a doubt. That Hillcrest game was solely based on the free throw percentages, and it ended up costing them a big win. My second key to the game is to own the board. We talked about this in our Fenton recap. This Fenton team is a small team, and their tallest player coming off the bench is a 6'3" center. Montas Lanis is 6'6". He should be able to capitalize on all of these. And, you know, we talked about it in the first segment. The biggest struggles for Fenton were their rebounds. It's something that needs to be capitalized by our key players, but I don't just think that this can be capitalized by our biggest player, Montas Lanis. I think it can be capitalized by guys like Cam Mercer, who leads the team with 14 defensive rebounds, and Danny Loftus, who leads the team with 24 total rebounds. And some other sneaky guys that you could throw into this conversation is Ben Biskupik, the hustle player of this team, who's got 14 rebounds on the season, and Vince Dockendorf, our shortest player, but definitely, one of the hardest workers. He has 7 rebounds in the season. I wouldn't be surprised if he can collect a couple of rebounds today.
And adding insult to injury for Fenton, as we see, they're actually to the left of us right now. Their number 4, their power forward, Curtis Ellis, is currently in an arm sling, meaning he probably will not play. He is 5'10" and one of their tallest players in the starting 5. So that, again, will be major for RB. And now we'll move to my Hickey's Pickies, where I have 2. I have Cam Mercer and I have Montaj Slanis. Cam Mercer, once again, he's been playing at the 3. He has hit his stride after falling sick due to illness in the first game, but he's come back, averaging 17.8 points per game. Look out for him to have a big night. Meanwhile, I also expect Montaj Slanis, who will be playing at the center, to be absolutely instrumental in RB's win tonight. I will call him Windex for tonight, as he needs to be RB's glass cleaner. So watch out for him, and let's hope he can stay out of foul trouble, as Fenton loves going to the line. That will conclude our Hickey's Pickies and Keohane's Key segment, as we'll now take it to our interview with Henry Jurgens, who just recently spoke with Ryan Gruber before the game.
After a tough stretch of games, how does the team need to respond to win this game?
Yeah, I think this is a real important game for us. It's when you go through 4 games at Thanksgiving, it gives you the opportunity to kind of really see where your team's at the beginning of the year and what you need to work on. We had a full week of practice going on right now, where we didn't have to play any games this week. So we really got to work on a lot of the things that we struggled with this past week. And yeah, it's going to be a tough test for us. And I thought we played some really good stretches against Joliet West in that 4th game, bouncing back from a tough game against Fenwick. But the message all week has been to play 4 full quarters rather than 3, which we played in that game.
So, backtracking off that, what do you think your team needs to improve in order to win this game?
Well, I think, defensively, I think we need to stay locked in for an entire possession, and not just, I think we had a tendency to play hard at the beginning of a possession and not close it out. I think our transition defense needed to improve. I think our ball movement on offense needed to improve. Free throw shooting for sure. So there's areas we can definitely improve on, but all very fixable things.
Fenton is no stranger to success in this conference, as they were the winner of the Upstate 8 last year. How does your team need to establish themselves in this conference with a huge win today?
Yeah, we're coming into their league. They've owned it the last couple of years. Coach Taft does a phenomenal job. He's a great coach. He's run a really put together a great program. So we're looking forward to being, a vital part of the Upstate 8, and we're no stranger to success ourselves, winning numerous conference titles over the last few years. So it'll be fun, getting this battle in the first game against a team that's had a lot of success and the coach that does a great job.
Tomorrow is a very important day for you guys, obviously. How do you get your team to stay disciplined and take games one at a time? Yeah,
it's tough sometimes.
Yeah.
We've preached all week that the most important game on our schedule is the next one, and that's today. With a week long to prepare for today and a little bit of tomorrow, the conference game is the most important game on the schedule right now, but there's no secret that playing the Chicago League Classic is a great honor. It's a great opportunity for our boys to play in a college arena in the top event in the Chicago area every single year. And so I know they're looking forward to it, but right now I think we're pretty focused on tonight, and hopefully we have an outcome like this one, and our sophomores are playing great.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Henry, for that interview. That will conclude our pregame coverage here at the courtside baseline with me, Liam Keohane. Stay tuned at RBTV.tv on Comcast Network to watch tip-off in under 30 minutes.